What is going on, everyone? We are here for another Dev Talk series where we cover different games and ask the developers about their games. Today, we're talking about IdleMMO with the developer Galahad Creative. I'm Crazy Fi. That's Paisen with me, drinking his Fresca, as always. And let's get right into these questions, because in my opinion, I may be biased, but these are pretty gosh darn good questions. All right, so the first question we asked Galahad Creative, and for those that don't know, Galahad Creative for IdleMMO, their co-developers, we have Mike and Yomu. So they both were answering questions, mostly Mike, but Yomu does come around. All right, first question here we have me asking. I recall you mentioning in a blog post that you purchased a domain for IdleMMO years ago. What was your vision for the game back then, and when you acquired the domain?
Yeah, so Mike responded and said, I've actually been toying with the idea of making an idle game for a while. Originally, I thought about adding idle elements to SimpleMMO, but I worried it might take away from its core experience, actively stepping through the game, excuse me. IdleMMO's initial goal was really just to be an idle version of SimpleMMO. In fact, Yomo even built out a travel/stepping system early in development to try capturing that feel, but we felt like it didn't really fit. So Crazy Fi, what do you think about this?
Yeah, dude, I think it's very interesting. So those who don't know, a long time ago, Mike had a post on SimpleMMO, a blog post that he did, and he talked about, or I think it was, or maybe the beginning of I don't know, but he talked about how he grabbed this domain like a while ago. So that's why this question appeared, right? I think it is interesting. I'm glad that they are two separate games. I think either making SimpleMMO more idle would really, like you said, takes away from the core experience, but also making IdleMMO an idle version of SimpleMMO does not make sense to me. I think it would have ruined the game, in my opinion. I couldn't imagine like an idle stepping system. That kind of sounds extremely boring, in my opinion. I don't know. Especially because like actively stepping can't get very boring already. So that's just my personal opinion. But yeah, I'm glad to see they're two separate games. I think they fit two different niches and two different genres that need their own different creative ideas to grow into what they are now.
Yeah, I don't even know what that would look like. Like, what, you just have like set character to step, and then you just like don't play the game again for 10 hours or something. Like, I don't. Especially because SimpleMMO one is such a simple game, where equipment is all over the place. Usually doesn't matter. There's 3 stats, and one is arguably the only useful one. So yeah, I think I'm glad they went in a different direction. I'm glad they made a game that is more aligned with traditional MMOs in like an idle hybrid environment, because again, their idle timers are not nearly long enough to consider a pure idle game with IdleMMO. But I think for Galahad Creative, which we've seen, with like their fat burner, whatever the hell that was, and all their other like coding, specific projects, like the debugging stuff and whatnot. I think it was a good direction to create another game, especially as players. Like, oh, you're doing what I would expect of a game studio to do anyway. But yeah, that very interesting that we could have got something completely like simple idle or some shit like that.
Yeah, that would be wild, to say the least. All right, let's move on to the next question that we asked. And that question is, how has your original concept for IdleMMO evolved since you first envisioned it? So how has it grown, the concept?
Yeah, and so Mike said, actually, it hasn't strayed too far from our original goal. We wanted to create an idle game that still required a bit more check-in than most others out there. In the past, I'd play idle games that I quickly lost interest in because they let me idle all day, which made them pretty disengaging. We wanted something that still felt idle, but was genuinely satisfying to play. We know this approach isn't for everyone, and that's fine. We didn't want to just make more of the same. If people want long idle times, there are already some great games out there for that. So why do more of the same? The only part that felt a bit off was the battle system. It ended up needing more engagement from the player than we intended, since it's an essential part of the game, hence the recent change. While we're open to adding more active elements, it didn't quite fit as a core mechanic in an idle game. We're working on refining that balance now.
Yeah, so I think this really breaks down to like trying to find your niche in the market, right? Like you can't create another clone and just be
Why
okay
not?
with it. You know, like look at like all the PBBGs out there, persistent browser based games. It's like, oh, it's like mafia based. Like here's another
Oh
mafia game,
yeah.
dude. Like you're gonna love it. It's like, am I? Because there's like two really good ones, and the rest of you are just crap. So why would I
Yeah.
even jump, ship to something else? So like obviously for business purposes, you have to find that niche where like you could separate yourself from the rest of the pack, and that's what they're doing, and what we call this hybrid idle game that they've created in that way, because there are some really good long idle games out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a obvious decision to make if you want to make a game that's going to make money and be fun for people. And then of course the battle system, like even today as we record, they're making updates to the battle system, and like and the equipment you have, like it's still ongoing. They're still making changes, still adjusting, because they're right, like that battle system sucked in the beginning, and they're making a large improvements to it to kind of fit within that niche, because it was kind of its like weird. It was like the weird stepchild out there sitting alone. Like, what are you going to do with that thing? I don't know. Kick it to the curb and replace it. Sorry for all the stepchildren out there.
Wow, dude.
You gotta add some type of humor, right?
Unhinged dev talk.
Forgive me. I know not what I do. Or what I say truly. Anyways, back to the answer. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see how they continue to play out the battle system to incorporate it more into this idle esque like a system, this hybrid idle, instead of just being like this active piece. I feel like actually I'd be interested in what you think. Jobs, it's almost like Jobs in SimpleMMO. Jobs is like the only idle piece in SimpleMMO, and it just did not make sense. It doesn't really fit, in my opinion. And that's how the battle system felt to me, but on a larger scale within IdleMMO. It was this active piece within this hybrid game, this hybrid idle game. What are your thoughts on that?
Actually, I think jobs make perfect sense because SimpleMMO is such an active game, right? It gives the player a sense of accomplishing something, or erasing that dead time while they're asleep or they're traveling, whatever. Like at least you're earning like bare amount of EXP and gold, but it gives the player that flexibility. Same with quests. If you can use at night, or if you have the time, manually get that increased reward by doing it yourself. I think the battle system IdleMMO is more critical. It's in a state that's more critical to IdleMMO because people don't want to play an idle game that's got this, the dark fantasy aesthetic as IdleMMO with like weak combat. So that's what I think about that. But in the response, the totality of the response, I applaud them for trying to do something different. I mean, we didn't coin the term idle hybrid. Mike did in a blog post, specifically relating having engaging combat, the hunting system, and world the world map, and traveling to locations to do certain things. There's no stepping. I mean, there is kind of like a stepping feature in it that could take hours to freaking do if you don't teleport.
Just teleport,
bro. I know, it's like, yo, man, like don't remind me of World of Warcraft over here. This is so punishing. But I will say, like, I get it, and just how you pointed out, like trying to like be a diamond in the rough, like amongst other games. Idle players are. I mean, honestly, if you could just like cut and paste the quality of life, the art style, and the functionality of Melvor Idle, a single player game that you buy once in expansions, right? If you could just put that into a multiplayer browser-based app-based game, idle players with the long idle times and the depth that a game like Melvor offers, we would pay or play that gladly. We would love that. And we played games like Ironwood RPG in the past that kind of almost did that for us. And so, yeah, like you could copy and paste those features, make it multiplayer, and just have that functionality and refinement, you would get a large. I believe you would still get a large player base. I understand completely. Don't want to be the same. Want to have different aspects of the game. Try it out. Those are different, features in the game we haven't seen before. But look where it's got you. The battle system is so, in my opinion, broken right now in its state. Like you mentioned, constant updates to just fix it, or at least make it more flexible or meaningful to do. And now they're stuck with that. So I'm wondering how it's going to turn out in the future. But I personally would love just a more refined idle experience. Those players are still out there, but that's what I have.
All right, fair enough. All right, let's move on to the next question here. Both of you, Mike and Yomu, have worked independently on other projects so far. Mike has SimpleMMO and his other, like Fit Igniter we like to talk about. Yomu has his SimpleMMO App Hub, several different websites,
Wikis.
Yeah. Exactly. How has the experience of collaborating on this project been different?
Yep, so we got 2 responses here from Mike and Yomu, and the first one is Mike saying, it's definitely been a learning curve, and a great one at that. In all of my previous jobs, I've worked independently as a sole developer, so collaborating with someone else has been a game changer. Getting deep into collaboration tools like GitHub has been absolutely invaluable. Yomu says, it's been great. I have always worked on projects alone, and as someone who had no real work experience back then, having someone to guide you to become better at what you love is a dream come true. I have learned so much from Mike. He is a great teacher, and I hope I will continue to do so for a long time, as there is so much more to learn.
Look at that.
Just
a perfect
pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yomu's like, please don't, get rid of me.
Don't fire me, please.
Let's just keep working on stuff together, Dad.
Yeah. I mean, pair programming is incredibly beneficial. It's used in a professional settings. Not to say Galahad Creative is not, because they're clearly a business, but in large enterprises, you see pair programming happening all the time. So it makes sense that collaboration is the key to success. Cool. Let's move on to the next question. We have, did you anticipate IdleMMO's rapid growth and popularity?
So Mike says, yes and no. I expected it to grow quickly, which it did, especially after the buzz around the closed beta last year. But honestly, the scale of growth has completely blown us away, especially after the Android release. I think we hit over 100,000 downloads within just a few months, which is wild. That being said, I've seen how these things go. While I love seeing the surge in new players and downloads, I know most of that excitement is temporary. Long-term growth always matters more than a quick burst, and it's something we've emphasized a lot. We've managed to keep things steady with the influx of new players, but I fully expect the numbers to dip a bit as the initial wave continues to die down. Once that settles, we'll have a solid foundation to keep building on.
Yeah, and so for those who don't know, the game, in my opinion, exploded for PBBG in an app like this. It went from, a few hundred players to 10,000 to 20,000 even, pretty damn fast, within a quick turnaround, which is impressive for a 2-man team developing this app and creating it, right?
Yeah.
So
and their Discord blew up too.
Yeah, their insane. Discord blew up. And the buzz around the closed beta, I think, was truly because of the Eidolon implosion that occurred that drove a lot of people. That was a significant, in my opinion, a significant moment that helped out IdleMMO gain its initial buzz, was that another game imploded because the dev was greedy. Go figure. So it's and now I think we are starting to see that settle. Every time I'm logging on, it's 7,000, somewhere between 7,000 to 8,000 players. If you follow the little green dot at the top, that are playing at any given time. So I think that is probably what their baseline is going to be. I would just if you think about it, absolutely a great number to have to you see a lot of these PBBGs nowadays with 30 people at one time, or 100 within the past 24 hours. So they're doing fantastic in my eyes, at least, for not being a AAA studio with a backload of millions of dollars, right? It's great to see this growth, and then absolutely, long-term growth is better than these short-term surges. All the time, unless you're some of these scammers who throw up a copy of a game, get that surge, get the money, kill it, and then redo it constantly like that, which is technically a business model you could follow, as shady as it is. But yeah, long-term growth is a lot better.
Yeah, and yeah, it's to be expected. I mean, we just released the IdleMMO video a couple days ago, and people in the comments were saying that, through the evolution of IdleMMO, the players have dipped from the initial, and honestly, it's just to be expected. I think core players, they're going to have to like ride it out until we get more, what I like to say, fun features in the game, because they are, focusing on stability,
right,
in those foundational building blocks. So, yeah, but completely makes sense, and it's good to see them surprised. Keeps them humble of these projects, these games are creating.
All right. So the next question we have here is, was it challenging to scale the game to accommodate such a large player base, especially with that surge that occurred?
Yes. So, Mike says, surprisingly no, thanks to SimpleMMO, even though IdleMMO has more players and activity, we built it from the ground up with scalability in mind, drawing directly from the lessons learned with SimpleMMO. There were a lot of underlying structural issues with SimpleMMO that really taught me what to avoid this time around.
Yeah, and like for me, like, it's interesting, right? Because you have load balancing you gotta do with your servers. You have to potentially scale your servers if they're not prepped to support such a large surge of players all of a sudden. So it's good to hear that they've learned from SimpleMMO. I'm sure in the early days, like 2020, 2021, when. And I think that was really the search for SimpleMMO. Maybe I don't have like the true numbers, but that's what it felt like.
Whenever XPie's videos were popular,
that was back then.
Like 20,000 freaking views on SimpleMMO videos. Can you imagine?
Yeah. So that's exactly
not us.
No. We hit that wave too late. Anyways, but that's like the curiosity I had. Like, how are you able to handle that? And so basically, because of SimpleMMO, they're able to learn and adapt to ensure they could scale to that in mind. And it showed, because the game, there were a couple times where the game would crash every once in a while, but that they've clearly fixed that, because I haven't had that issue in a long time, and it wasn't like a game ending for me. It wasn't like the end of the world and everything's dead. So good on them from learning from previous lessons. Lessons learned are always important. That's how we grow.
Yep. Or if you just watched the final episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm like I did, titled, have never learned a lesson. There's that option too.
There's that option too.
Yeah, but this is so true for them. I mean, all the blog posts has been about this,
right?
Approaching IdleMMO differently and better with more like modern, modern processes to building a game,
right?
Front and back end. Yomu has talked about this, and now he's in charge of fixing SimpleMMO as well, so he knows all about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, even the blog, the post about SimpleMMO, this is what's mentioned is like, we were trying to fix SimpleMMO, and you can see like what that's done to the community over there on that side of the house. They've effectively avoided that in IdleMMO,
right?
From our opinion, right?
Yeah, so, exactly. Spot on.
That's all there is to it. They're just doing it better.
Yeah. It's like experience teaches you something.
Just sacrificing the SimpleMMO player base at the.
Thank God, get rid of all of them. All right.
Oh my God, I still play.
Next question, and it's the final question here. And there's a big answer. So gotta love that. Have any lessons from developing SimpleMMO influenced your approach to building IdleMMO?
All right, here we go. It's pretty much connected to question 5 here. Yep. Mike says, good question. Absolutely, I've learned a ton. Some of them I brushed on in the above question. It's had a massive impact on how I approach projects. I'm more focused on long-term goals rather than just quick wins, which was the complete opposite on how SimpleMMO was operated. A lot of SimpleMMO was built in my free time on a Saturday or after work, so I tried to build things as quickly as possible. The shift to focusing on long-term goals has its challenges. Sometimes, if we're working on changes that need time to settle or take a while to implement, it can lead to some friction with players. Most players, though, not all, are focused on what they can get right now, not on the long-term health of the game. So changes that don't have an immediate positive impact, like adjustments in taxes or balancing that might be beneficial months down the line, are usually a tough sell. And I get it. If I were playing something like Guild Wars and they raised taxes to stabilize the economy, I'd be annoyed too. I'm losing more of my hard-earned gold than I was yesterday, and I don't care what effect it has months from now. Chances are, I might not even be playing then. So one of the biggest lessons I've taken away is that it's okay to recognize that different viewpoints can exist, and that sometimes critiques really just come down to different perspectives. It's not about one side being right or wrong, but more about understanding we might simply have different goals, and that's perfectly okay.
Yeah, I think this one is really well written. It's it's basically how a player feels in the game versus like the importance of taking care of that game, maintaining that game, and improving that game. And Mike, I'm glad to see that Mike has the understanding of that player and their mindset, right? And he's right. It does like go against like what is best. The player mindset goes against what is best for a game, unless you're like a core player of said game, right? Because then you're like you want that game to succeed, and you're willing to take some hits for the better of the game. But a lot of like casual players that show up, start playing the game, like, oh, this is trash. Why aren't they fixing it? Blah blah blah, and they dip. Like that happens all the time. But that goes back to the surges. That goes back to long term, focus and goals of the game. It's a very interesting one, especially the taxes part. Like that was a big update in SimpleMMO that caused a big issue, but like potentially, I still don't know the math. So let's just assume like potentially helped the game, but it clearly is on Mike's mind. Like that was a big learning moment for him. Like that's like all he talks about is taxes in this. So that's interesting.
That's when the death threats came in.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, unfortunately, but so
unfortunately,
so again, you see how he's learned from SimpleMMO, and it all comes back to that long-term longevity of the game. So I get it, and he gets it, but he's got to focus on what is good for the game, which will in turn, in the long run, be best for the players.
Yeah, and I can see, because I'm in the camp of like, if this was like a diagram with three bubbles, like I'd be in the middle,
right?
With, like the blending, because it's like it's so important to have a mixture of we could call them like stability upgrades or updates or like implementations and actual playable features,
right?
Because he mentions that you could lose your player base, and I mean that's what's happening with SimpleMMO. That's what has happened. And you see like that dip in IdleMMO, like we talked about, the initial like downloads and stuff like that. That has already happened. So I think you definitely need a balance, improvements and playable features, and then also like longevity. We're talking about an idle browser, a PPBG, so the player time horizon, I would say, is completely different than what a triple A MMO or double A MMO could offer you.
Right.
Because most of those games, broken or not, they have infinitely more features on launch day than what an idle game generally has, right? So while I think IdleMMO was built more successfully and will have better longevity than SimpleMMO within its own like projected development, I think that's just another challenge, because it's like you think it's sometimes it's harder to quit like a pay to play game like Warcraft or Final Fantasy or something, right? But like a free to play idle game, browser game, whether it's unique or not, it's as simple as just never logging back in again.
Exactly.
So they're connected. The types updates that the game gets and how to retain your player base, you're just going to have to figure that out, and I hope they do. And I hope they apply those lessons from SimpleMMO, because it's that what's happening in SimpleMMO right now, you definitely don't want to happen in IdleMMO.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's a good point, right? And in an ideal world, and Galahad Creative is big enough. Like they're a AAA studio, right? And you have teams that focus on those two buckets. You have your features teams, and then your maintenance stability teams, right? So they have different focuses, and they don't have to prioritize between the two because maybe the overall company has to, but those teams, that's what they're set to do, right? Galahad Creative doesn't have that opportunity because they're not a AAA studio with millions and millions of dollars backing them up. They are a two-man development team that has to prioritize between features and stability, and you have to find that right balance. Or like you said, you get SimpleMMO and loss of a player base. So I think they're finding that right way to do it right now with IdleMMO. They have bug fixes, they have improvements to current foundational systems, and they're bringing in new things like the seasonal leagues in IdleMMO. So they're starting to there is a cycle that they have going on. At least it seems from the outside. So they just got to continue walking that fine line to improve the game and add new features.
Yeah, and they're actually adhering to a roadmap, so that's another plus side.
Yeah, absolutely. Got that vision. So that's it. That's all of our questions for IdleMMO. Want to say thank you to Galahad Creative for our partnership. It's been super beneficial for both parties, hopefully. But it has allowed us to do have these conversations and these talks with them. So thank you to Galahad Creative for that. Thank you to Mike and Yomu specifically for answering our questions. We really appreciate that. Taking the time to do that in your busy schedule means a lot to us. So thank you. And that is the questions for it. So next thing here is we will continue doing these conversations, these questions with developers, whether it's SimpleMMO, IdleMMO, whether it's just about the company in general. We love doing this with Galahad Creative. So if you have questions about the games, we could do another rendition for each of the different games they have, or about Galahad Creative in general, and we could figure out if they're down to have another talk. Additionally, if you are a developer and you want to get involved and you want to have these conversations and you got things you want to say, hit us up as well. We are in the PBBG Discord. We're there as well, and we'd love to showcase games. We'd love to showcase how developers build it, because I think that's a missing piece, being able to talk to them, reaching out to the community that way. That will do it, though. Any parting words for you, Paisen?
Nope. Just thanks again to Galahad Creative. Thanks to Mike and Yomu personally, and my little special guest here says thank you as well. But yeah, if you're a dev out there and you want to talk about your game, hit us up. All of our contact info is attached to our YouTube profile, and our Discord links down in the description. And like Crazy Fi said, we're in the PPBG community. We're there. We're ready to engage with the community itself. The Game Jam was a testament to that. But yeah, have a great one, everyone.
Sweet. If you like this video, go ahead and hit that like button. If you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button so you can be notified every time we produce it, because I promise you there will be more. And as always, leave a comment down below if you have more questions, or let us know what you thought about this video. All right. Till next time. Bye-bye.
Peace.